not surprisingly, one of the most common questions I get from viewers like yourself is, Brian, what contract manufacturer do you recommend? Now, I do answer that question in another video, but it is fairly brief of an answer. And I want to dive into this topic a little bit more deeper, but answering it from the point of view of, why is it so freaking hard to find a good contract manufacturer? We're going to dive into several points. We're also going to review a particular quote to give you a little bit more color as to what's really going on out there and why is it so difficult. And then I'm going to have an actual solution for you, but bear in mind it's not for everyone. So let's get to it. Now, if this is your first time here, my name is Brian. It's great to meet you. I've been in the supplement industry for, 2 decades now, specializing in regulatory affairs, quality assurance, helping brands navigate FDA, FTC requirements so that they can launch a successful supplement brand. Why can't you find a great contract manufacturer? Now, there are a lot of reasons, and we're going to dive into most of them. It's not going to cover everything, and there isn't a really particular order to this, but let's get going. So the first one is that there are just a lot of startups out there, a lot of startup manufacturers, and as a result, bad manufacturers. The question is like, well, how could that possibly be? You've got FDA regulations, you've got, manufacturing. How hard could it be to make a supplement? Well, it's technically not difficult to do it, but there are a lot of FDA requirements that, I'm going to be frank, there's a lot of entrepreneurs that just get into the business of manufacturing thinking that it's easy. They don't dive into the regulations. They don't understand the quality requirements. They just think it's literally encapsulating powders into a capsule or tableting, and they buy a tablet press or they buy an encapsulator and they buy some gloves and a robe and they think that's it. Unfortunately, that's not the case. And so, you've got a startup that looks at another manufacturer, they think they can do it better, they think they can do it more efficient. Well, the thing is that there's a reason why the other manufacturers take a much longer time. There's a reason why they're implementing a lot more processes, a lot more steps into the entire procedure. And so, you've got this startup mentality thinking they can cut corners, but they're really not. They're just skipping what you're supposed to do, thinking that it's actually more efficient or faster. And then you also have this element of startups copying other startups. And the same thing happens with brands, like the supplement brands. You want to launch a new weight loss product. What's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to go copy what's being successful on Amazon, thinking that, well, if it's in the market, then therefore it's okay. Therefore, I can copy them. Unfortunately, the reality is you can't. Also, the sad reality is that there are a lot of crappy brands out there that are non-compliant or skipping a lot of the steps, and they haven't been caught yet, or that they are doing fairly well, but they haven't gone through the pressure testing of the actual economy, the business itself. And they might be doing well for now from a D2C standpoint, from a Amazon standpoint, but as soon as they really want to build out the business, get investors, go into retail, maybe expand their portfolio, that's where they really falter. And it's just a matter of time, right? So my point here is that there's a lot of copycatting involved. And unfortunately, if you're copying a bad product, a product that's not compliant, or a manufacturer that's not compliant, well, you're just replicating the same errors. And you get a lot of that because of this nature of the startups or the bad manufacturers. And speaking of bad manufacturers, sometimes they're bad because they just don't know what they don't know. They didn't make the extra effort to invest in the right people, or at least learn the regulations and requirements and all that it entails, right? And then you've got other manufacturers that literally just make the money on this one and done attitude. They're here to just get that first order from you, take advantage of you in the sense that they just want to get the order and they know you'll never come back. They know that you're not going to be successful. And as a result, they don't really care, right? They're going to just quote you the cheapest price. They're going to do the absolute minimum testing, intentionally trick you. Almost, it's a fraudulent idea, right? Ideology, a concept here. And that's why they're bad, and that's their intention. They have this one and done mentality. But like I said, there's another bucket, and I think this is the majority of them, is that they just don't understand the regulations. They don't know how to execute it. They might read it in FDA's guidance. They might read the regulation, like the word for word reading, but they don't really understand what that means and how that applies to their production process. And what happens is they price out their P&L, their margins incorrectly. And then they realize, we've done that wrong. We can't make a profit if we do it right. And so they continue doing it wrong. And they just sell you and use the keywords. And they're really good at selling you because ultimately you, the general you, can't decipher between a good manufacturer and a bad one. You go on a website, they all say the same things. We're trust quality is a priority, we're certified, we do ID testing, potency testing. Yeah, they all say the same thing. So it's really hard for the average entrepreneur, the average person, or even people that have been in the supplement industry for a long time but have not been part of the operation side of things. It's really hard for them to decipher truth from non-truth. All right, let's move on to the next one. Ultimately, one thing to keep in mind is that manufacturers are watching out for themselves. They build their product, yes, to your desires, right, in terms of the label claims, the ingredients, but the way they structure everything behind the scenes, whether that is the contractual obligations, whether that's how they actually formulate and test your product, they're doing it so that it's easy for them and it protects them the best, but doesn't protect you. Essentially, what they do is they put a lot of the liabilities onto you. And to that point, manufacturers are playing on your lack of knowledge. Like I said, they're kind of hoping that you don't understand things, right? At least the bad ones, the mediocre, the poor manufacturers, they're hoping you don't get it. Because if you do get it, you'll realize all the things that are missing. And if you ask them to do all these things, you become a more harder client to satisfy, and it also increases liability risk. I'm going to dive into an example of that. So here is a heavily redacted, as you can tell, quote from a contract manufacturer that presents itself as GMP certified, that has the processes in place. They have hired people that are in the industry for a very long time. All of that is true, okay? Right? Just to give you a sense of how crazy this stuff is. And in this quote, you can get a sense of the type of information that's presented, the number of order units that are to be ordered, the price per unit, of course, the ingredients here. Of course, I would redact all this stuff out. And everything seems to be fairly good, especially if you are not familiar with the inner workings of the supplement industry. Yeah, I'm going to go down to page 2. Here, page 2 is just more about like what kind of bottles you're going to use, what kind of capsules you want. So, it's very product specific at this point, but I am redacting it. But if I scroll down here, right, you see this language. Customer buyer has read and understands the content and accuracy of the product being produced by manufacturer and their own supplement responsibilities under 21 CFR 111. So they're throwing in language saying, hey, you should know what the requirements are of 21 CFR 111. I just told you not too long ago that there's a lot built into these regulations. Even those that are in the supplement space, that are manufacturing, don't even know what these requirements are. And it's hard to read it. There's a lot of information to read. And for some reason, they're expecting you to understand that. It's not right. Now, if they want you to understand the labeling requirements and all those things, sure, but that's not 21 CFR 111, all right? And even then, it's kind of like, do you really think that your customer, the brand owner, is really going to dive into these regulations? No, they're looking to you, the manufacturer, for expertise. But you can see here, this is how it all starts. This is how they hope you don't understand these things and you just sign on the dotted line. And you can see here, they threw in the other testing parameters that they're including in the cost price per unit. So here they're saying that here are the specifications, microbiological specifications, aerobic count not more than 10 to the 4th, etc. And that's it. That is the testing parameters that they're including. Now, again, to the layperson, you're thinking, all right, sure, they're the experts. Why wouldn't I be okay with that? Well, it doesn't stop there. Unfortunately, when it comes to dietary supplements, what do we know that is an issue in this space? Well, products aren't tested to label claim, right? The potency is not there. Maybe they're high in heavy metals or other contaminants. Well, guess what? There's no mention of that here. And they don't bring that up. They don't bring out like, okay, we're testing for your potency, we're testing for the label claim. They don't bring any of that stuff up, and they're doing that intentionally. They don't want to bring it up because as soon as they bring it up, well, your question is like, well, are you testing it? And here's the reality: they're not. And this is not just this manufacturer. I'm just saying that this is like the way the game is played. So they're intentionally not bringing up other parameters, because for them, this is an easy bar, right? This is an easy bar for them to hit. If you want them to test for something else, they're like, well, now I have to put more procedures in place. What if it doesn't pass? There's all these other complexities. So this is like the easiest bar. I've seen some of these where these quotes, they don't even include this. And again, when we, as someone that's brand new to this space, we assume that the manufacturer is doing all of this stuff in our best interest. And I'm telling you, it's not. This is like some additional terms. Now, this is a very, very weak contract, but you can see here already, customer buyers are responsible for any finished product testing they choose to perform at their cost. The manufacturer takes no liability and indemnifies itself within any regulatory agency. Like, come on. Like, you should be responsible for something. Why are you throwing it all on the brand? And again, this is my point. They're watching out for themselves, right? Some of this dynamic makes sense. Of course, they can't bear all the responsibility. And in some cases, if the brand owner wants to do some things or say some things on the label that I think are more gray or more of a higher risk, well, in that case, it makes sense for the manufacturer to say, hey, we don't want to be responsible for that. But you can see here how the language is by default kind of like, it's all on you, and we're not responsible for this, right? And so, here's another one. Information contained within the statement is accurate to the formula, and that will be used to produce the products under 21 CFR 111. Here again, they're just saying, it sounds like they're just saying, we're only going to make it your product to the formula that's identified above, right? And then that's it. And to the weak testing, that's all. We're not holding them accountable to anything else. So essentially, when I'm working with clients, we're not going to let this slide. We're going to dig harder. And then what happens? Manufacturers, the good ones appreciate that. The mediocre ones, the so-so ones don't like that. They're like, dude, you are more of a headache. What are we asking for here? Nothing that unreasonable. We're asking for just some basic testing. We want to protect ourselves a little bit more, right? We want to find some middle ground. We're not asking for much. And I'm going to tell you, it really isn't much in the grand scheme of things when it comes to a legit brand. We're not asking for anything out of the ordinary. And the good manufacturers, like I said, know that. But yeah, this is why it's so difficult. There's at least one example as to why it's so difficult. But hopefully this hammers in this idea of they're playing on your lack of knowledge, and they're hoping that you don't see this. You pay the deposit, you sign on the dotted line, and you go, which obviously we do not want to do. All right, moving on. The next one as to why you can't find a great contract manufacturer is that many of them are actually brokers. You're not actually working with the manufacturer themselves. You're actually working with a broker, a middleman that doesn't have a facility. They might represent themselves as a manufacturing site or a manufacturing brand or like a facility brand. And they're essentially just taking your business and then they're contracting it out with a manufacturer. All right, some brokers do this properly, and I want to be very clear. There's nothing wrong with brokers in particular. I think where it does go sideways is when the broker represents themselves as a manufacturing facility. I think that isn't truthful, and I think that is actually really bad, especially when there's a problem. Then all of this stuff comes out. You realize, oh, wait, he's not a manufacturer. Oh, wait, he's not making it at this facility that he said he was going to. And then this is during when there's a problem with your product. There's an FDA issue. Another thing with brokers is it's just another layer into the whole supply chain. If you have an issue, you have to go through the broker, and then that broker has to go through the manufacturer. Again, it's doable. It's just another thing you have to think about. And then, ultimately, like, what's the true value of the broker? And like I said, there are some brokers that do this well. They're providing good service. They're able to have a really good relationship with the manufacturer, but not all of them do that well. And I think a lot of them, they're really not providing much value. They might pretend that they are, but really they're just being copied in on emails. They don't really do anything other than email for you. That's it, right? And that's like really, what's the value then? What are you getting for that money? One more thing with brokers, if you think about the broker model, right, they're getting a cut once you actually get product. When you buy the product, when you put it in the PO and you pay the full price of it and all that stuff at the end of production, they get a commission. And so what's their game? Well, they only get paid when you put money down. So they're going to like rush you into this, right? That's they're incentivized to. So are they going to fully vet the manufacturer? Are they going to bring up some of these things I brought up with the quote? I don't think so, because it's going to slow down the process. I'm doing that because I already know what the problems are going to arise. I come from that compliance mindset. I'm trying to make sure that everything is set up now properly so that there aren't any issues later. These brokers don't. They don't normally have a quality compliance background. They might have an operations background. They may have been in the supplement space for a long time. They may have had sales background, but they don't really get it from a compliance standpoint. Anyway, I'm not here to badmouth brokers. I just want you to know that there are some companies out there that you might find online. They look like a manufacturing facility, but they're really not. And I ran into a couple. We did some screening with some where our clients found some facilities, and we dive into the things. We set up the call with them, and we realized they're actually brokers. And what's funny is they would even try to argue and present themselves, well, we're not actually brokers. We're the sales agent for the manufacturer, but separate LLCs, separate contract. And I'm like, dude, you're a broker. That call didn't go so well, and it was pretty clear that they were not a good partner. The guy was lying about what FDA requirements were. Like, again, they're playing on this hope that you don't have that knowledge. And unfortunately, it works for a lot of customers, entrepreneurs. But luckily, I was on the call, and I was like, no, that's wrong. No, that's not accurate. And you could tell he's like, felt pretty deflated after the call. Okay, so moving on. What's the next one here? Yes. Why can't you find a great contract manufacturer? Well, you, as in the client, you might not be that professional, and you don't understand or get the business, meaning you don't understand how the business works. You don't understand, why a manufacturer might ask for certain things, or why lead times are what they are, or what the testing is involved, or if there was an issue. Do you understand really how the raw material supply chain works? Do you understand how the business works? Do you understand where they get the raw materials and how the labels all get put together and all these things? And if you're not professional, if you don't come off professional, if you don't come off like serious about this business, they don't want your business. And which brings me to the second point here, is that the good manufacturers are screening you, right? These 2 points here. They want you to understand the business. They want to make sure that you are serious about the business. If you're just, starting from your college dorm room and you only have $5,000, well, they already get a sense, and you're emailing them from your blank 69 at hotmail.com address. It doesn't look great. They're getting bombarded by a lot of people that think they have grand aspirations, but everyone knows that they're not going to be successful, right? The chances of success, regardless of the supplement space, but any business, is very, very low, let alone the supplement space. And they're looking for the right client, the client that is willing to learn the business, that is wants to understand, that wants to do this right, that has good funding behind them. And the goal here is that they don't want to just work with you on the first run. They want you to succeed. They want you to make subsequent runs. I mean, that's where they make their money, is the subsequent production runs. So they're screening you out as much as you're screening them. And I would argue the good manufacturers are not afraid to say no. Unfortunately, a lot of them do ghost, right? Ghost clients. I'm not saying that is acceptable. I think that's very unprofessional in some cases, in many cases. At least tell them, right? That's kind of how I see it. The take home here is that it's really important for you to really brush up your skills on the industry, to really know what you want in the end in mind, right? The end in mind of your product, your claims, the testing component, all of these things. And of course, that's what we're here for, to help a lot of clients do exactly that, so that when we do reach out to the manufacturers, you know what expectations are, because you understand the business, you understand the lingo, you understand the complexities, and why, some of these conversations might not go where you want it to go. For example, a lot of people that aren't familiar with the space, they think, oh, it's just as simple as, find a manufacturer, pay the price, I get my product. But those that really do understand the dynamic of this, like, well, that might not be the case. Maybe the negotiations of the contract might not work out. Maybe the testing terms might not work out. Maybe we go visit them, do a virtual tour, and we realize that the facility is not good at all. And as a result, the relationship might not work out. And so the expectations are very different versus one that is brand spanking new. They don't know what's involved and they want to launch in 1 month and they don't understand the lead times and they get very frustrated. And so this is why the understanding is so important and all the inner workings of the supplement space. All right, the next one as to why you can't find a great contract manufacturer, and that is, Google isn't helpful. Online is not helpful. The manufacturers that hit on page 1 and 2 on Google are really good at SEO, right? That's about it. Think about this. My argument, and of course, there's a bit of speculation here, so take it for what you will. Just think of all the number of searches. They're getting hit all the time with fresh leads. And so for them, they're not in the business of doing the best work, the highest quality work, working with the best people. They're there for that one and done business because of the sheer quantity of inquiries, because of where they land on the Google page. The really good manufacturers are good at making supplements for strong brands, and where they get their business through conferences, through the network. And they're not great. They don't understand SEO. They don't play that game. They're playing the game of let's just do what we're really good at doing, which is, making great supplements. Versus the guys on Google internet that show up through the ads, that show up on the first page, because there's a reason why they're doing that. They've probably cracked the code and are getting a ton of traffic. So they're taking advantage, or at least making a lot of money, on the people that don't understand the business, that are the one and done guys. They don't care. They're doing the bare minimum. They probably talk a really good game. I get that impression through the sales reps and through what I've been exposed to. But they're not offering you the type of partnership relationship that one would probably expect if you're starting your brand, that assuming that you want to create a very premium quality brand that's here to last for a long time. If you want to just sell some cheap stuff on Amazon to make a quick buck on the side, that's a different scenario. But the reality here is that, at least for this point, what you find on Google, you're probably not going to find the really good manufacturers. All right, the ones that you really expect or are hoping for. So where does this take us? Well, with regards to that first question of, Brian, what manufacturers do you recommend? I go back to my original response, which is it's really hard for me to make that recommendation because their formula, your ingredients, the manufacturer, the sales rep, the lead time of the ingredients, all of it really creates a tailored scenario. Unfortunately, the answer is it depends, right? Whether a manufacturer is good for you. It could be good for one client, manufacturer A, but then manufacturer A could be not so great for another client because the ingredients are different. The formulas are different. The testing requirements are different. The lead times are different. The sales reps are different. Sometimes you see leadership turnover. You see employee turnover. And then all of a sudden, a manufacturer that was good isn't so good anymore within 6 months. It's crazy. So ultimately, I'm not a big fan of saying this manufacturer is going to be good for you, this manufacturer is not going to be good for you. What I do say instead is, look at this one, look at that one, but we still have to vet them. Now, the vetting process can take time. I kind of alluded to that. There's a lot of talks around contract negotiation, looking at their facility, understanding the QA program, building up that relationship, all of it. And so, for the right client, we do offer this service, this plug-and-play service. There are certain manufacturers in my network where we've built a really good relationship with, and we understand their quality program. They understand my standards, and we've been able to figure out a relationship where it streamlines the whole thing. Instead of vetting a manufacturer that a client might bring to me and we're starting from scratch, this kind of fast tracks things because I already built that relationship. I already know how they operate. And so for certain clients, for the right client, this is something that we can help you with. And I say, it's not for everyone. And I say it's for the right type of client because the manufacturers that, if I'm going to put some level of my name to it, to, Blue Ocean Regulatory's name to it, we're looking at really high end, or I would say, fairly well reputable, well established manufacturers that have been in the supplement space for a long time. And so we're not going to put you into just any manufacturer. Well, here's the thing. they're still screening you, right? So they've got requirements from a price point, from a minimum order quantity point. They want to make sure that your brand is going to be successful, that you're doing all the right things for subsequent runs. Not that they're going to hold that to you, but they want to make sure that you understand the business and you know what's going on, and you as an entrepreneur are doing all the right things and really thinking things through and asking the right questions, right? But yes, there is an MOQ requirement. There is a pricing component. I mean, these manufacturers are, think of it this way, they're probably like the BMW of manufacturers, versus some manufacturers like talked about, they're probably like the Honda Civics or the Kias of 20 years ago, right? Yes, they'll get you from point A to B. At the end of the day, you get a bottle with capsules in it or a bottle with powders in it. But how it got there, all the stuff that they did, how they fix problems when there is an issue, the facilities are going to be night and day difference. We're looking at pharmaceuticals in some case, pharmaceutical level facilities, and then others might not be, right? The ones that you might find online aren't like that. So there's so much more you're getting for your dollar. I think the value there is a very, very different discussion. But ultimately, I understand budget is a constraint. That's why I'm saying this is not for everyone. But where we hit on MOQ, where we hit on the right price, and when we have a good understanding of the industry, then there might be the right opportunity where this plug and play feature might fit. Anyway, I know I've been talking your heads off. I hope you found this information useful. Hopefully you found this video useful. And of course, be sure to check out all my other videos on this channel if you're thinking about launching a supplement brand. All right, I'm going to leave it there. Talk to you next one. Cheers.